your Edward Jones financial advisor, and I'd like to help. Stop by our office in the Public Shopping Center on South Rutherford Boulevard or give us a call at 615-907-7056 for a face-to-face appointment. Edward Jones, Making Sense of Investing, member SIPC.
WGNS Murfreesboro, W270AF Murfreesboro, W263AI Murfreesboro, Smyrna. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the WGNS Action Line, talking with Rutherford County newsmakers about what matters most to you. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
Well, good morning, everybody. Brian Barrett in for Scott, who was going to be in for Bart, and you know how all that goes. It's just a crazy schedule. But good to be with you this morning on the Action Line. Be sure to stay with us throughout the morning. We have the Roundtable with Dr. Bill Krause coming up next hour, and then I'll be back for Rutherford Issues in the 10 o'clock hour. We're talking with our friends from the United Way of South Central Tennessee a bit later on this morning. Also, a reminder, keeping an eye on the weather today, a level 2 out of 5 for severe weather possibilities this afternoon, damaging winds and hail, the possibilities with those strong to severe storms. And unfortunately, looks like around drive time, we'll have to deal with those. A check on the roads and another check of the forecast is coming up here in just a few moments. Well, today we're going to talk law and order. That's right. The law part of law and order. I wish I had the dun-dun, but I don't. From the law offices of John Day, Laura Baker joins us here today. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. Good to have you here. This is going to be a weird way to lead off, but that just made me think about law and order. Do you get into those procedurals and things like that?
Oh, yes. I have a deep love for true crime.
Yeah?
All things true crime, because I don't do criminal law. So,
okay.
So some people might think that's a little strange for a lawyer to want to spend their off hours watching Dateline and Law and Order and those procedural type shows. But for me, it's different than what I do all day long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. They have to be popular because there's so many different types of shows
they are
out there. Is the order part of Law and Order, I guess, the courtroom stuff? I mean, is it, I know it's not real life, but I guess, do they get it close even?
Some shows get it closer than others. To be honest, like 90% of lawsuits and, criminal cases would be really boring to the average person. Yeah. So they cover
That's why they're not doing that, right?
Right. They cover the 10% that's exciting.
Yeah. So I would think even a high percentage of those never even get to a courtroom, maybe.
I think that's very true, particularly here in Tennessee.
Do you have a favorite show?
That's a great question. I think Dateline. I do. I like when they put pictures and videos and recordings to a story. I like to hear and see it for myself.
So it's more like a documentary type format. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I guess my guilty pleasure along those lines is Better Call Saul.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. That's a John Day favorite, too.
Is it really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad we've got something in common there. That show is something else. But watched every season, and then that last couple of seasons, you had to find where it was and all. But, it was just very gripping, I guess. But anyway, you kind of, tell us about yourself. What type of law you do practice, where are you, where do you come from, all that good stuff?
Well, I've been practicing law for a little over 18 years now. I'm actually from Nashville, born and raised. And
you're rare.
Yeah, I'm a unicorn. I call myself a double unicorn because born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, came back here to practice law, and my entire law practice I've practiced with John Day.
Wow.
Which is very rare in the legal profession for lawyers to stay at the same job their entire career so far.
So you said 18 years?
Yes, sir.
So 18 with John.
18, and we do exclusively plaintiffs' personal injury and wrongful death cases, which means that we file lawsuits in a civil court, not criminal court, for injuries that people have sustained or deaths of family members due to the negligence of others.
So, boy, there's been a lot of growth in 18 years, I know, within the law offices of John Day. And one of those, thankfully, when he moved to Murfreesboro and opened up an office here, we were able to build a relationship that I really enjoy getting to talk to John. And, you know, sometimes you see these folks who pop up on television and say this and that. And when you know, there's something different about John, I think, and maybe you being in that office, you know that, you see that firsthand.
I know it. I've seen it firsthand. I wouldn't still be at the same place I've been for 18 years if I didn't have great respect for John and the work he's done and the impact he's had on the legal profession. So
and very well respected across the country. I mean, some of the things that he's told us that he is doing now, and just the recognition that he's gotten for what he does kind of sets the office apart from others, I think.
Absolutely. He is president-elect of the American College of Trial Lawyers right now. He'll take office as president next year, which is an international organization, invitation-only organization for lawyers who practice at the highest level of trial law. I also had the pleasure last week of presenting the Nashville Bar Association's Liberty Bell Award to John for all of his scholarly contributions to the law and his work over the years to make the law better for all Tennesseans, in particular those who've been victims of other people's negligence.
Now, when you say scholarly, you're mentioning that he's written papers and things of that nature that have been used to even help develop laws, from what I understand.
Absolutely. John's written a number of books. He wrote Day on Torts, which is the book on Tennessee tort law. He recently spent a vacation writing the Tennessee's very first treatise on wrongful death law. And so he's made, as I said last week when I presented him with the award, a lot of lawyers go home after a successful day in court and pat themselves on the back. Yeah. John goes home and says, how can I share what I learned with other lawyers so they can help their clients?
And then picks up the pen and goes to work.
He does.
You know, you hear on air and television and all, you see testimonials, and I have not seen one testimonial from folks who have, I mean, it always says actual client, and it's not some flamboyant big, but they're really talking about how John and all of the attorneys within the law office have changed lives, and that those are powerful.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because that's one of the things that we do think as a firm sets us apart from some of the other law firms that do what we do. When you work with our firm, you know who your lawyer is. You get to talk to them. We regularly communicate with our clients and explain to them every step of the way what is happening, what's going to happen next, and what are the implications of different facts and different laws on their particular claim.
Well, Laura Baker is here with us today from the law offices of John Day. In particular, do different lawyers within the office, do you have certain, I guess, areas of expertise that you work in? You
know, sometimes we get on a roll where we might get a number of cases with kind of the same subject matter. Every case is different, so you can't, there's not one size fits all approaches to how to handle them. But no, I mean, all of our lawyers handle all different types of cases, which we think positions our clients better, so that no matter which lawyer ends up being the lead lawyer on their case, they have the education, they have the training, they have the skills to be a good advocate for our client. The firm itself, we, anywhere from car wreck cases to dog bite cases, premises cases like a slip and fall or a trip and fall, wrongful death cases, commercial vehicle cases, medical malpractice cases. It runs the gamut. Anytime there's been an injury or a death and some other person or entity caused it because of negligence, that's the type of work that we do.
Yeah. Let's face it, I think others within this portion of law services have maybe kind of given a black eye to the whole group that work on these cases, but I think that's where you stand out above the rest, if that makes sense, because it's really truly personal, and you really get down to some, car injury cases that change lives forever and have no hope. It's not just about getting as many cases as you possibly can. It's about really changing the lives of those people.
Very true. And, we work really hard on the front end to make sure that when we accept a case, it's a case that we see merit in. And we do try to kind of set ourselves apart by being at the forefront of all developments in the law, the rules of evidence, courtroom practice and procedure, so that anyone who calls us, whether it's the tiniest, injury claim from a car wreck, all the way to the most catastrophic cases, some that have really hit us hard that I can remember are, child death cases. Those are just awful, awful situations. But whether you have the, quote unquote, biggest case in our law firm or the smallest one, our commitment is to giving every client that personal level of service and compassion that they have a right to expect of their lawyer.
I was talking just yesterday to our Rutherford County Emergency Medical Services, and by the way, just a little PSA, the 19th through the 23rd of this month is EMS week, so give a pat on the shoulder to those who are the first line of defense. But he was saying, Brent Carter was with me, and he said the cases or the calls that they get that involve children are the most heart-wrenching.
They are absolutely heart-wrenching. I think for anyone, as a mother myself, they're particularly heart-wrenching. And I also give a big pat on the back, maybe a huge bear hug to our first responders, because I can imagine from being what I call a secondary responder in cases like that, not the first responder, but I come in later. But I know what that kind of vicarious trauma can be like, to be there and walk through a horrible situation with the family.
And they're having to relive that situation with you, so you kind of know what's going on, and I'm sure that's hard on them, hard on you, so those are just tough. But thanks for what you do, and thanks to John and the team. How many are in the office now?
We have 8 lawyers now, and we have a 9th lawyer who's going to be starting with us in September after he takes, and he better pass the bar exam. Hope he's listening right now.
Yeah. Well, good luck on that bar exam. I hear that is quite the experience.
It is. It's changed a lot over the years.
Has it?
Oh, yeah. Back when I took the bar exam, you wrote your answers. I think now it's all computer-based.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you had to write as legibly as possible.
Exactly.
And is there a time limit on those tests and things?
Yes, there is a time limit.
Wow.
And it's a 2-day exam.
Gosh. Studying for that must have been, because this is what you want to do, but you've got to pass that exam, right? I
always say it's kind of crazy that there aren't that many professions in the world where you have to take a test to be able to do the job to begin with. It's,
on the front end.
Yeah. A little stressful.
I can imagine. And I guess that is just the black and white of rules and laws and things of that nature. When you take the bar exam, do you specialize, or do you just have to kind of know the wide gamut?
You have to know the wide gamut. You are tested anywhere from, wills and estates to family law to tort law to commercial paper and secured transactions.
Wow.
It may not be something that you ever intend on practicing ever in your whole career, but you still have to know the basics of it, which actually I think comes in handy because lots of different areas of the law cross over in weird ways. For example, if we help, a married couple and in the course of us helping them, they get divorced, that can raise issues. So understanding a little bit, maybe just enough to be dangerous about divorce law isn't a bad thing. Or a client or a defendant ends up declaring bankruptcy, it's good to know just a little bit about bankruptcy law so that you can help navigate those challenges.
And, as with anything in any profession, there has to be some, crossover a little bit. That doesn't mean you have to be an expert. Have you always really wanted to do, law in terms of like you are now with injury cases and lawsuits and things?
I've always wanted to be a courtroom lawyer. I've always wanted to help real people, and I've always wanted to be that voice for clients in the courtroom. So I guess maybe that has something to do with why I'm still at it 18 years later.
And helping people along the way. And we're talking about cases that, I mean, it's not just a couple of weeks and you're done. I mean, you're living life with these folks for a while.
Oh yeah, we're walking with most of our clients, for at least a year, sometimes a couple of years. It really depends on the case. Some folks have smaller cases and we're able to get those resolved for them more quickly. But everything sort of depends on when has our client recovered from their injuries, if it's a personal injury case, because that's the moment at which you can start working towards a resolution. You wouldn't be able to do it beforehand because you wouldn't know the extent of your injuries or damages.
Is it good to have Professor John Day just down the hallway or a phone call away?
Oh, yes. John has in recent years said that his specialty in our law firm is answering the questions that have no answer, which he can do because of his years of experience and the, thousands of people that he's helped over the years. There's very rarely a situation that I walk down and say, hey, John, what would you do, that he doesn't have some prior client or case that he can hearken back to and say, this is how I would handle it.
Yeah. And I guess when your name is on the door, that's your shingle that's got your name on it. You want to make sure that, not in a hovering micromanaging type of way, but higher quality people,
Absolutely. Yep. He's got a huge commitment to us being, like I said, on the cutting edge of law. And one thing that we lawyers in our firm do is we read every case that comes out of our appellate courts that touch on the type of work that we do, so that we always know what's the Court of Appeals, what's the Tennessee Supreme Court, what are they saying about the law that impacts our clients' cases, so that we can use that information to be better advocates.
Well, Laura Baker is with us from the law offices of John Day today, and I think I went down a few rabbit holes with you, but I hope that was okay.
It was great.
just kind of talking about some things here. But we're going to come back, and if you would like to text in a question specifically around injury cases, lawsuits, that kind of thing, and what we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about this morning, pre-existing conditions and how those could affect the cases, and that's part of the digging down to the second and third layer of these things that we're going to talk with Laura about. So if you have a specific question kind of in that realm, I'll be sure to pass it along, and we'll talk about it here on the show in the next few. 615-893-1450 is the number to call. Make sure text. Let's take text this morning. It's just a little easier to get in. That way we can pass along the question there. So text 615-893-1450. I'm Brian Barrett. You're listening into the Action Line this morning, and before our break here, let me remind you of our good neighbor of the day today, and that is Kevin Green. Kevin is today's good neighbor for exemplifying leadership through compassion and encouragement to the students over at Blackman High School. Kevin is going to receive flowers today from Jenny Harrison and everyone at Ryan Flowers Coffee and Gifts and News Radio WGNS. We were talking this morning about the longevity of the law offices of John Day, and just think about Ryan Flowers. Bart told me that when he bought the station in 1984, Ryan Flowers was doing the good neighbor of the day, and they were doing that before then. So that's over 40 years of commitment, 40 years of great service to our community. So we appreciate our friends over at the law offices of John Day and Ryan Flowers Coffee and Gifts with that. And happy birthday today to Renee Victory. Renee wins the banana pudding from Slick Pig Barbecue as our birthday club winner today. So happy 46th birthday, Renee. We'll be right back with more here on News Radio, WGNS 1019 100.5, wgnsradio.com.
At Turner Security, we bring cutting-edge protection with live video monitoring, access control entry, advanced camera systems, and intermedia IP phones, all designed to keep your business safe and connected. From small businesses to large enterprises, our expert team ensures seamless integration and around-the-clock monitoring, because security isn't just a service, it's our mission. Turner Security, powered by TechCore.
Demas, and our family is inviting your family to come eat with us at Demas's restaurant. We really focus on value. They get value. They get more than what they pay for. They get a higher level service. They get higher level food at a price that is a lot more affordable. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give people the value, and again, that they were fulfilled both within their stomach and as well as their pockets. We want them to feel satisfied. Come eat with us at Demas's restaurant on Northwest Broad Street.
Hey, this is Dan with Music World and Drummers Den. Come in for your guitars, keyboards, drums. We have you covered. Our prices will normally meet internet prices. When I buy a guitar, I have to put my hands on the guitar neck. You can do that here. You can try your instrument before you ever put any money on it at all. And still cheaper than what you could get online most of the time, at least match their prices at worst. Come see us at Music World and Drummers Den, 2762 South Church Street, right across from the golf course.
From the big news of the day to stories from everyday life, it's the Rick Burgess Show on WGNS, weekdays 11 till 2.
Good morning. Still a little bit of traffic volume. 65 southbound at Trinity Lane. It's trying to load up again with a little bit more volume as you come past B&A Airport. Over here on I-40 West, coming in from Hermitage into Donaldson. Still pushing in from Wilson County right now. It's pretty heavy out through the Mount Juliet area headed towards Nashville. Still a little bit slow at times. 24 West as you come in from Murfreesboro, Rutherford County up through Antioch. Hey, when you need dependable towing in Middle Tennessee, call the best. That would be STR Towing and Recovery. STRtow.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Now, here's your Rutherford weather forecast.
When severe weather strikes, we break in.
We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms at times this afternoon with cloudy skies, a high in the upper 70s. Tonight, chance for storms, a low of 58. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 64.
When severe weather strikes, we break in.
A tornado watch is in effect for Rutherford County.
The most up-to-date weather information.
We'll be here with you on radio and with Rutherford Weather Video Channel.
Rutherford weather updates on WGNS and watch on YouTube and Facebook with Rutherford Weather. The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Back on the Action Line. Sorry for that pause. There are so many different buttons that I'm not accustomed to pushing. I have my buttons and where they're supposed to be, and it's just willy-nilly here with what Scott's done, but you know how that goes. We're talking with Laura Baker this morning from the law offices of John Day, and going to talk specifically, Laura, about, or you are because you're the expert here, but about injury cases and lawsuits and some of the things that you see where pre-existing conditions can have an effect. And I'm sure that's where you really have to ask a lot of the right questions to find out some of these things, right?
Absolutely. Because not every client or every person who has suffered an injury has a fractured arm or a broken leg, something that clearly happened as the result of the traumatic event. I didn't have a broken leg 2 seconds before you crashed into my car in the intersection. Now I have one. There's nothing pre-existing going on there. Yeah. But for many people that we help, they have an injury, but it's to a part of their body that they previously had some other condition happen in that area of their body. So most of the time that comes up in cases with back injuries or neck injuries.
I was just thinking back, you
yeah,
know.
Sometimes emotional injuries.
Yeah.
But, everyone, as we age, as you're standing here right now, Brian, your back is losing basically water, and it's turning into stone.
It feels like it every morning.
Yeah, mine too. But that's what, as we age, we are slowly developing arthritis and other, creaky joints, that sort of thing, is just a natural part of the aging process. When you're in a car wreck or you have a trip and fall accident, you may cause injury to your back, and that injury is on top of something that was really already there. So being able to parse between what was already going on with your back versus what is now going on with your back can be a tricky thing. You need medical doctors to help make those distinctions and explain the difference between, a ruptured disc and some underlying arthritic changes, which are just a natural part of the aging process.
Interesting.
It comes up so often that we actually have what we call pattern jury instructions, the instructions that a jury gets at the end of a trial about how you're supposed to approach the task of deciding the case. The judge instructs the jury on the law, and there's a specific instruction about pre-existing conditions. And what it tells the jury is, if Brian had a condition prior to this incident that got worse because of the incident, that is an injury, and you can award damages for that injury.
The fact that it got worse. If
Brian had no problems because of the pre-existing condition, so like as you're standing here right now, you got arthritis in your back, you may have never been to a back doctor, you may have never had physical therapy, you may never have had an injection, you may never have so much as complained to a doctor that your back was hurting. And in that case, the jury is empowered actually to award damages for the entire injury and not parse out like, hey, we think 10% of this injury is pre-existing and 90% of it is from this incident. If you can't distinguish between the prior and what happened after the incident, then the jury doesn't have to. They can award damages for the entire injury without trying to parse out, what was going on with Brian beforehand.
It's tough to be on a jury sometimes, isn't it?
It is. And it's even tougher because there's not one side of that story.
Yeah.
The injured person and their lawyers and their experts put on their proof that this is a new distinct injury or that it's an aggravation, but it's gotten a lot worse. And then you've got the defense attorneys and the insurance companies that are putting on their experts and their witnesses to say, Brian's making all this up. He already had it going on beforehand.
And so they're doing their due diligence, and the defense is digging up information, and they're going to your doctor and, subpoenaing records, things like that, right?
That's right. Actually, most of the time our clients are having to produce past medical records in the case so that the other side has a fair chance to look at them and run them by their own expert and put on their own proof of their position in the case about, how much this was an aggravation or not an aggravation or not a new injury at all.
How difficult is it with health records and things of that nature? I'm sure you have to have permission and all that kind of thing, but it probably is a little harder than just gathering normal information, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you absolutely have to get, HIPAA compliant medical authorizations to allow even our office. We can't just get our clients' medical records. We have to have authorizations that pass muster at the hospital and with the medical providers to give us those records. There's a whole industry about getting medical records. Thankfully, we've moved into the age of electronic medical records, so that's getting a little bit more formulaic how to get them. There are companies that are making sure that those records get uploaded or scanned over and sent to all the lawyers in the case.
Yeah, wow. Very interesting. We're talking with Laura Baker today with the law offices of John Day, talking about pre-existing conditions and how that can affect your case, your situation, whatever that might be. And there's a question that has popped up here from 8507, and it was kind of talking about that same almost similar scenario that you gave, and in a roundabout way, this person had a previous work-related accident that caused them to be out of work for what is that? When people text and they use the shorthand, sometimes it's trying to.
You don't know the new language.
Yeah, it's like no, I don't. But that they were out of work for several months, and then years later, were in a car accident, and they're working through that right now, it seems. So even something that happened a decade ago, that's still part of the pre-existing condition, I guess?
That's up for debate. That's why there are two sides to every case. But we've helped many people who've had injuries or conditions that occurred decades ago, even years ago, and there's been nothing else, for a lengthy period of time with that condition until a wreck or a trip and fall or some other incident happens. And so, when you're talking to that plaintiff's medical providers, they may say, no, that doesn't really have anything to do with this. This is a completely new injury. They were doing fine. They had nothing going on with them. You may then get an expert on the other side that says this is all part and parcel of the thing that happened 10 years ago. And that's why medical records do end up being pretty important, because both sides are interested in what they say and then want to have medical experts to come in and explain the medicine behind that. You can't actually go to court on an injury claim without having a medical doctor testify about it. We have requirements that someone with that specialized knowledge and training present to the jury on what are the injuries, what caused the injuries, what is the extent of the injuries, and what happened because of them.
Yeah.
And then you get counter experts that will try to poke holes in that.
So for our texter, the very end says, do I have any hope in this injury case? And I think from listening to you, that answer is yes. You just need to, get with someone like the law offices of John Day.
That's right. And the answer is yes. And I'll tell you that one of the things you learn in law school, and you might be tested on in the bar exam, is the concept of an eggshell plaintiff. And what that concept means is that people who cause careless accidents, they have to take you as you come. So if you already have some aging in your back and they make it worse, they don't really get credit for the fact that you weren't a perfect specimen before they caused injury to you. You're an eggshell. Oftentimes, I think an aggravation of a pre-existing condition is actually worse than if you cause the same injury to somebody who's never had that problem before, because that person may recover better from it than a person who has had some ongoing issues over the years with that body part.
This is probably not an analogy that you have ever been presented with, but it just popped into my mind. If Humpty Dumpty were in the courtroom and he had, been pushed off of the wall, you look back, did he have a crack in the shell before? You mentioned eggshell, so that maybe...
Exactly, yeah, that's exactly the concept.
Okay.
You can pass the bar exam, Brian.
Wow, look at me. So give us kind of the bottom line here is, I think, sometimes maybe we want to keep, even if it's to our benefit and we're seeking help with an injury case or a lawsuit, sometimes we want to keep some things under the radar or off the table, or, just not bring those up. Every single detail is important because the defense is going to try to find a weakness or in the case. I mean, that's their job, right?
They are. And so that actually is why particularly when you're dealing with a pre-existing condition and a new injury on top of it, a lawyer can be very helpful because we spend a lot of time getting those past medical records ourselves, so that we know what the defense is going to know, and we can figure out, is this going to be a problem for the case, or is this that eggshell? Like Humpty had a crack before he fell, but when he fell, everything was cracked.
Right.
So that's a lot worse than what was there before.
The in part of your going through a case and discovery of evidence and things of that nature, I'm sure you've run across situations where maybe the person that you're helping didn't think that those two things could be related to each other too, right?
Absolutely. And that's why the law requires that you have medical experts. Not just that we have medical experts for our clients to prove that the injury was from the wreck, but the defendant, the defense attorneys, they're held to that same standard. So if they want to say it wasn't caused by the wreck, they can't just say it.
Yeah.
They got to have a doctor to support that position.
So you could have the plaintiff have a doctor and the defendant or in the defense in this case, and they can get expert opinions that could be different because they are, again, opinions, but they're the expert, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
And then both sides, cross-examine the things you see on Law and Order. Cross-examine the doctors and poke holes in those opinions if they can.
Sometimes I find it fascinating how courts work, and the fact that there is such a weight on the jury, and I'm not sure that the jury ever gets a lot of credit for that, because you have people that aren't experts in that in these necessarily, and they're making decisions. That they're the ones that have to decide which of these doctor experts is right in their opinion. So
Exactly.
It's a tough thing, isn't it?
The one thing about being a juror, and I, so far, have never had the pleasure of it. I don't know if I will get
Probably
to
not.
now. I've never gotten quite that far in jury selection myself. But, one of the things I love.
I'm a lawyer, and then this, okay.
Yeah, they're kind of like, all right, get out of here. But one of the things that I think is really cool about how juries are instructed on how to approach their task, what the judge tells them is you don't check your common sense at the door. You come in here with your lived experience and what you know as a human living in this world, and you get to bring that to your task too. And so you don't have to we don't have expert juries. We don't have professional juries. You get to take the evidence that's presented to you and as a group decide what the just answer is to it.
Laura, it's been fun talking to you this morning, and I think we've learned a lot here, and I'm going to be biased in this, but I think you work at one of the best offices in the country. We really think a lot of John here at the station. I think he's helped a lot of people just having conversations like we have today with you on the station. I'm not sure if every single lawyer in the office has been on the air with us or not, but I know a lot of you have. So, and great spokespersons here to help us understand the law a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for coming by today. We're going to wrap up our Action Line program here in just a couple of moments, but today our guest has been Laura Baker from the law offices of John Day. We'll be back in just a couple of moments, and stay tuned. Roundtable coming up here in about 10 minutes or so.
Hi, this is Tina Fox at the Rutherford Farmers Co-op. Come see us for all your lawn and garden needs. Also, if you're looking for that great gift idea, please come see us. If you're looking for that perfect outfit or a wedding gift or baby gift, come see us at the Rutherford Farmers Co-op. And if you haven't heard, we also carry the rain chains. If you're looking for something to replace your old gutter or put somewhere where you can't put a gutter, come see us at the Co-op Farm and Home Center, Middle Tennessee Boulevard, just off of South Church.
CBS News Brief. The Cardinals taking part in the conclave to elect a new pope are likely wrapping up their lunch break before trying again. Kelsey Wilson of Indiana watched from St. Peter's Square as black smoke wafted from the Sistine Chapel's chimney signaling no pope was chosen in this morning's round of voting.
A holy man of God that proclaims the gospel, ready to take on the huge role of shepherding 1.4 billion Catholics in the world.
CBS's Stacey Lynn reports the U.S. and U.K. have agreed on a trade deal.
On Truth Social, the president called the deal a full and comprehensive one that will cement the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom for many years to come.
The U.K. is the first trade partner to reach a deal since President Trump started raising tariffs. The Trump administration wants to make the sky safer.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is expected to unveil a multi-billion-dollar plan today to overhaul the nation's air traffic control system.
And to hire more controllers. CBS News Brief, I'm Michael Wallace.
Get old. Old National Bank, that is. Old National Bank has the experience and service you need to buy a home, make investments, even online and mobile banking. Old National Bank is in the borough on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Old National Bank at 2230 Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard, which used to be Mercury Boulevard.
Visit us and enjoy warm, homemade cookies at Old National Bank.
Old National Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
It's the Doug Young Educator of the Month from News Radio, WGNS, and City Tile and Floor Covering on Spring Street. This month, we're proudly spotlighting Dr. Devola Span-Morman, Special Education Supervisor with Rutherford County Schools.
I come from a family of educators, and I have always had a helping spirit and mentality. I am blessed to be able to help and work with students and families from all walks of life.
She has a heart for service and a passion for students.
Sometimes we forget to laugh and stop and enjoy the small things in life. Kids have a way of reminding you to not sweat the small stuff and to just enjoy life as it is.
Every day, Dr. Morman finds joy in making a difference.
Seeing all of my students graduate from high school and being productive citizens, especially those with disabilities who have had to overcome so many obstacles.
That's our Educator of the Month, Dr. Devola Span-Morman. Nominate a teacher at wgnsradio.com/educator. It's the Doug Young Educator of the Month from City Tile and Floor Covering.
Now, here's your Rutherford weather forecast.
Want to remind you that we do have a slight chance, or a level 2 out of 5 chance of severe weather this afternoon, mainly during your afternoon drive home. So we're talking 3, 4, 5 o'clock into the early evening hours. Large hail, gusty winds are the most likely culprits here with any storms this afternoon. That doesn't mean that we're for sure getting severe weather today. It's kind of what we would consider a low-end threat, but there's chance of strong to severe storms in the forecast for us today. Current conditions, 70 degrees in Murfreesboro and 65 here at the studios. I think we're going to see an uptick in that temperature coming up here in just a few. Well, that is a look at your forecast and wraps us up here on the Action Line this morning. A reminder, if you came in late during our conversation this morning, be sure to head to the website. We'll have the podcast up shortly here from wgnsradio.com under podcast, then Action Line, or Facebook, YouTube, Twitch on Big G TV. See you next time.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, flagship station for MTSU Sports.